you get there. Then we're going to hear from Jordan Revenaugh, who's the current editor of the Pleiad, a couple of mentor moments from Dr. Krista Quessenberry and Jim Diedrich, and we'll sandwich in between that some career experiences from George Pinocchio and Jim Anderson. And I think, just in deference to you, Mr. Smith, we're going to put you in there too, if you don't mind, for a minute. And then we're going to get a update from Garrett about things that are going on at the college, just in case this is your first point of contact with Albion in a while, kind of bring you up to date on what the college is doing, the relationship between the college and the community. And then we'll go to what I called the lightning round, which is where we're going to try to hear from everybody in 30 to 45 seconds about what's going on with your name and how did your Pleiad experience help shape you. So on behalf of the alumni board, I'm a member of the alumni board. That's why I'm organizing this today. And I am the parent of a current student. Bradley is a junior. He's at the Philadelphia Center this semester, and he is a Gerstacker Institute finance major. My older son, Blake, was a sustainability major. He graduated in 2017, and I've been engaged with the college since about 2013, trying to recruit new students, especially first-generation students. I'm a first-generation college student, and Albion meant the world to me, so I want to give back a little bit, especially to that community. So that's why I wanted to organize this, and I thank everyone for coming. So without further ado, I'd like to turn it over to Jordan and have her tell us about what's going on at the Pleiad today.
Okay, so as you probably gathered, I'm Jordan. I'm a current senior, graduating in May, which is kind of weird and scary to say. But the Pleiad today is doing very well. I've been editor-in-chief for the past 2 years, so last year and this year. And we actually, Krista and I have been very excited this past year because we have our biggest number of staffers I think we've ever had. We're up to 26 members now. Sam, our opinions editor, is also on this call. But yeah, that's been something, it's been a really big milestone, and it's really nice to be able to have pretty much constant articles to edit and put out. We have a publishing schedule that we've had for a while now of like publishing online 3 times a week, so Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And I know in the past it's been kind of difficult to like make sure that we fill every single publication day, but this year with our gigantic staff, we definitely have not had that issue, so that's been really nice. And then we also do like our once a month, pretty much print editions. So I have one coming up this Friday. It's also online, so that's something that we've been able to incorporate into our routine, as well as putting the print edition online, as well as having it available as a tangible thing. But yeah, that's one of the actual, like one of the little things that leading the staff in a pandemic has actually been like a little bit of a positive thing, is that we've been able to really renovate the way that we run things. And I never thought that I would say running a newspaper in a pandemic was a blessing, because it's definitely had its challenges. But even little things like moving our print edition online, in addition to having it like an actual print edition, and then just also tightening up the way that we run things in terms of like our pitches and the way we assign things. The pandemic, like running the newspaper in a pandemic, has definitely been a learning experience, but I feel like as a staff, we've all grown like a lot closer through it, just because it's a shared experience, kind of and we've had a lot of positive outcomes from a very adverse situation. And we've been able to not miss a single publishing day in a year of a pandemic, which, if I'm being honest, I did not see that coming last year at this time. But that has been, I don't know, I've been really amazed and really impressed with all of the staffers that we currently have. And I'm just very, very grateful for them every single day, especially because I know I would not have been able to run things on my own without their help. Like, I've definitely leaned on them where I've needed them. And my editors like Sam are just, I don't know, I'm just very grateful for them, and I can't express that enough. But yeah, so the Pleiad is doing good things. It's been a very, it's been a source of comfort, I think, on campus to a lot of people, especially as we go through so much unfamiliar things. It's like this one familiar thing that people have to hold on to is our newspaper, which helps share student voices. So yeah, I don't know. Pleiad's in good shape. So that's my update for you.
You did. Thank you, Jordan. That was terrific. Thank you. I want to now turn the microphone over to Dr. Krista Quessenberry, who's going to tell us a little bit about being the current Pleiad mentor during a global pandemic. I guess that's redundant, and I would get marked down for that thing. So Dr. Quessenberry, can you join us? Thanks. Well, she was here just a minute ago.
Hi, can you hear me?
Oh, there we go. Yep, now you're good.
Oh my goodness, I've been having the worst time getting it to connect. I'm so sorry.
Good to go now?
Won't turn on, but I'll just be brief since I cannot get the video to cooperate with me. Thanks so much for bringing us all together, Michael. This is such a great opportunity, I think, for all of us to touch base. And I was so excited when you had asked me to speak a little bit about sort of the relevance of student media today. And I think I would suspect and expect that it perhaps has changed slightly since some of us were student journalists, campus journalists. I know in the time since I was a campus media leader, it certainly has changed a bit. But I think some of what the Pleiad is doing today that's really important and valuable, and I'm not sure if Jordan has touched on some of this, but has been really just making sure that campus media is reflecting and representing the student body and the student voice that is present on campus today, right? The current and future Albion student is what we're trying to bring forward on the Pleiad's pages and make sure that the Pleiad is doing a good job of speaking for that current and future Albion student. And I truly think the pandemic has showed us how important local journalism really is, campus media being the most local type of journalism. And I think I cannot express how proud I am of the current Pleiads group for their perseverance, their dedication, their professionalism. They have not missed a single publication day since the pandemic began. They have continued going and going like many publications, and they, being that we were already a primarily online publication, there wasn't as much of a shift, but they have just gone with the flow and done incredible work in this time. And so as we as a publication have continued to try to increase our diversity, increase our reflection of the student body, and maintain kind of this responsibility to our readership and our campus community during troubled times, I think the Pleiad's been doing really, really impressive and incredible work. So yeah, I think that's pretty much what I have to say, and I will try to get my video working before we do breakout rooms. But thank you so much, Michael, for this opportunity to hear from folks and get together today.
Thank you, Krista. Thank you very much. I know it's been challenging on campus. Sometimes there are some classes meet in person, some classes are online. Sometimes that schedule had gotten messed around, and you gotta build the plane while you fly, kind of thing. So I really appreciate everything that you do, and to the student journalists on the call today. I really, really admire you. Jim Anderson, I think we're going to hear from you because I don't see that George is on yet. So we'll come to George if he gets in. Would that be all right?
Thank you, Mike. I do think George is on audio only. George, you want to give us a hello? Can you hear me, Mike?
I can hear Jim, yeah.
Okay. Hey, George, do you want to give us a hello if you can? Don't hear George, so
No,
okay,
he's probably
I'll
on
go,
a phone
Mike.
looking for the mute button. So
Go
go
well,
ahead,
I'll
Chang.
go ahead, Mike. Well, thank you, Mike, for organizing this, and it is so wonderful to see some really great familiar faces. Dr. Diedrich, I just can't thank you enough for what you did for me as a journalism student back in the early 1980s. I've thought of you many, many times over the years, and I'm class of 1983, by the way. And it was just an extraordinary time to be on the Pleiad staff those 2 years and under your leadership. And I am so grateful for what I learned from you and from what I learned being on the staff. We had just a brilliant group of writers and campus leaders involved. And that experience has really, I carried that with me in my long career in marketing and public relations. I was very fortunate to land in a career that gave me lots of opportunities to use my writing skills and also work with media. I've worked on some pretty high profile projects. Currently right now in Chicago, I am head of marketing for the former Sears Tower, which is the Willis Tower, very iconic, famous skyscraper. And little did I know as an English major at Albion that I would be working on this incredible skyscraper. But where my writing career was really rooted in the English department at Albion. And Mike and I have talked to English majors over the years, and we both have, and Mike and I have had many long conversations about this because we both serve on the alumni board and we're longtime friends. But anyway, we feel that the writing experience that we learned at Albion and writing for the Pleiad just really took us in so many different directions in life and in our careers. And every day I use writing skills that I learned during the journalism course at Albion and under Dr. Diedrich's leadership. And I tell students that all the time now that are looking to explore careers in marketing and PR, et cetera, like, you must have really good writing skills, focus on those writing skills. And my friend Andrew Witland is on this call, and Andrew's heard me say that many times. And I really believe that. And I was so fortunate that I had that experience with the Pleiad. But I think, with looking at what the Pleiad was like back then, I don't want to sound too nostalgic, but that there was really something about every Friday when that paper came out. And there was a sort of a buzz on campus during that time. And I remember those lunch hour critiques we had, Dr. Diedrich, when the paper would come out and we'd all get lunch and we'd meet in the dining room next to Baldwin and we'd talk about the issue that was just hot off the press and talk about, the impact that we were already making on some of those stories, the heavy ones and the funny ones. So just that camaraderie that we had as a staff and as a team of writers. And I ended up becoming the graphics editor, and I ended up becoming the editorial cartoonist. And this collage you see behind me, my mother had saved every single issue of the Pleiad from my junior and senior year, and she passed away a few years ago, and I found this huge box of all these down her basement, and I made this collage. But anyway, a wonderful experience being on the paper and being an English major. And just yesterday, I took part in a memorial Zoom call for Dr. Collar, Dr. Mary Collar, who passed away recently. And, she was another one of the greats in the English department at Albion. And she was my faculty advisor. And she was the one who really sort of nudged me, Jim, you should really take journalism, take writing and, see if you write for the Pleiad. I was the editor of the Albionian, the yearbook, my sophomore year. And so Dr. Collar was really such a great influence on me also as an English major. But no, I think about those Pleiad experiences. And as I said earlier, I've carried that with me throughout my career in writing, and I use those editing skills all the time from what I learned in that paper. So thank you, Dr. Diedrich. Thank you to my fellow Pleiad colleagues who are here tonight. And again, Mike, thanks for organizing this.
Sure. Jim, can I just get you to, 15 seconds, tell us about, is there an internship opportunity with you?
I'm interviewing right now for a summer internship. So, and I've gotten a few Albion resumes. So if anybody's interested in an internship in marketing on a really cool project, please let me know. So thanks, Mike, for that. Let me do that plug.
Yeah, that's great. So I don't know George's phone number, and I don't want to give it out to everybody. I guess everybody could see it. If he's on here, George, and if you can hear me, you're gonna have to unmute yourself. But if not, I think we're just gonna move forward. So George, if you're there, we're gonna count down 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. So we'll come back to George if he connects.
Okay.
Rick Smith, what's that? Okay, Rick Smith, could I ask you to fill in? It's kind of on the spot. I don't know if everyone knows you, but many of us do. I'll let you introduce yourself. Let's do it that way.
Okay. I was a Pleiad sports columnist and a feature writer, and in the tumultuous years of 1967 and 68, and it was a fascinating experience then. We raised a little hell, which was a good thing, and we would have raised more, except our faculty advisor was a very timid soul in those days, and I learned some positive lessons and some negative lessons in dealing with that. I would endorse everything that Jim said about the importance of writing, even if you're not going into long form journalism. Whatever kind of journalism you're going to do, my advice is write, and write some more, and preferably write for somebody who will edit you. After a year at the School of International Affairs and then the School of Journalism at Columbia, I started on something called a 4-week writing tryout at Newsweek magazine. And 38 years later, when I retired as editor-in-chief and CEO, they told me the tryout was going well. When people would ask about Newsweek's training program, I would say we train people every week by editing them. And the quality of writing improves in a directly proportional relationship to the quality of editing that you receive. And so I had a wonderful career. There were, I'd have to say that a couple of other professors at Albion had a more direct influence on my life. And now I retired for about an hour and a half, and I'm now running a foundation in New York that supports programs for at-risk and vulnerable young people in the city. The quality of writing and editing and thinking is critical to our work. And in the process of doing that, I often ask young people and leaders of programs, for that matter, outside of members of your family, who are the people, 1 or 2 people in your lives that are more responsible for who you are today than anyone else? And I've found that my quick answer to that question was a high school basketball coach in Detroit who taught me perseverance and fighting to the end, even if the score was against you. And then a couple of Albion professors and a couple of journalism school professors who were actually the toughest on me of any teachers I had. And frankly, one of the things that concerns me about an era where everybody rates everybody else is that the farther away I get from my Albion experience, the more I appreciate the demanding professors. I'll never forget an afternoon with a guy named Charlie Schutz, who was a political science professor. And I had done a paper for him. And he called me into his office and he said, I'm giving you an A on this paper because it's well written and it's probably one of the better papers I will read out of this seminar. But it is nowhere near what you're capable of. And I found that both chilling, but also really important. Same thing in a journalism school class. Somebody whom I respected a lot said, you know, you did this little documentary and it's fine, but you can do better. And I think the importance of being challenged to do better is critically important. And I say that to the kids in the programs that the foundation supports, and there are a lot of them. We support 300 different nonprofit organizations in the city and give away about $40 million a year. And the challenge is to think clearly about what you want to achieve, how to organize yourself to make that happen, and then go after and do it. And listen to people who will occasionally tell you, you know what, you can do better than that. So that's too much of a filibuster. I'll stop talking there.
Thank you, Rick, very much. And for those of you on campus right now, you should know that Rick was a former trustee of the college, and the reason you have a first-year experience is probably because of his leadership. It's also the reason the common reading experience for first-year students happens, because it helps put everyone on the same page when they start college. And I think that is transformative.
Oddly enough, Michael,
yeah.
One of the additions to the campus that I'm most proud of is the Equestrian Center. Not because I ever rode horses or had any interest in that, but I remember sitting at a trustees meeting and people were bemoaning, oh, Albion is a tough place to have a campus. We have no amenities. It's very difficult. And I looked out the window from Belmont Manor and pointed to this huge open field. And I said, we've got that. And
very good.
Thanks to other people's donations, we ended up with an equestrian center.
Very nice. Okay. Well, I want to turn the microphone over. Dr. Diedrich, we're just going to pause for a minute because I think George joined us, so I want to give him the time I promised him. George, can you unmute and tell us what you're doing at ABC 7 in Los Angeles?
All right. Well, first of all, I apologize. I go on Zoom every single day, but it's set to my work, and I had to sign up for an account to get into this just now.
Very
so
good.
Apologies. I work at ABC 7 in Los Angeles. I've been here about 25 years now. I cover strictly entertainment. So we're in our busy season right now, but that's a big question mark because we still don't know what the Oscars are going to be. But I will likely be on a empty red carpet reporting for a couple of hours, doing a lot of ad-libbing as no stars arrive. So it will be an interesting Oscar Sunday. And we might have a post show too, but there's no governor's ball, there's nothing. So we're trying to figure it out. But that leads to when you work in television news or in television, it's, you know, they have to sell ads just like you do in print. So we sell a lot of commercial time and they get a lot of sponsors. So we somehow figure out ways to do these shows. But Mike asked me to say, how do you get started in television reporting? And it's really what I've already heard repeated. Number one and period after it is writing. And I tell every intern I ever have, if you're going to be a producer, a writer, a reporter, an assignment manager, an executive producer, whatever you're going to be, you need to know how to write. So if they are not interested, they never become my interns. If they say they want to be a host, which is smiling and reading somebody else's copy, they're not going to be my intern. I've tried to explain to them that those jobs don't even exist anymore in the world of broadcasting. They're all taken by actors and comedians who want the work now and make a lot of money doing it. So you can host something online and still live in your bedroom that you had when you were in junior high, because you're not going to get paid to do it. So in TV news, what I tell everyone, if you're going to take the TV route, is you're going to have to shoot, you're going to have to edit, you're going to have to report, you're going to have to write. And if you're smart, you will do it wherever you can get a job. All of the success stories of my interns over the past 30 years or so have been kids who have been willing to go where there is work and go where someone wants them and wants to nurture them and see them go on to bigger and better things. The ones that we have at our station now, some of these younger people in starter positions have grown up in Los Angeles, went to school here, and are willing to look in Bakersfield, Santa Barbara, or Palm Springs. That's 3 television markets out of more than 200. So a lot of them never achieve their dreams, never leave, eventually take a different line of work. And I think what's interesting, and I don't know how it is in print, but our TV landscape is changing. If you're of a certain age, maybe 30, 35, under, you've already cut the cord and they don't suspect that they're going to get those people back to watch the news. What they are watching is our content online. So I think television stations all around the country are trying to figure out how to really make money off of that. So now when I write a story, I also have to do an AP story that goes along with it in the copy of our website, that when you click, you can watch the story, but if you read a little bit, you get a semblance of what you're going to see if you do watch it. So that's something that brings back the writing. So I'm still using that AP style that I used once upon a time back in the 80s. I also talk to people now because the pandemic has changed everything for us. I'm still working almost 100% from home. I cart around. My cell phone is my live shot. I have a light that I cart around. My wife and I set up different places around the house to do the live shot. Sometimes I have a Hollywood sign in my house because I do showbiz, and she's on the stairs with flashlights going like this. So I've got Klieg lights in my shot, just so I have something that's a little bit interesting and I'm not standing in the same place every day. We had an earthquake several months ago, and I tweeted, by the way, we have to tweet, do Facebook and Instagram every day. It's also part of the job, social media. I tweeted, "Did you feel that?" And immediately a boss called and said, "Could you go on?" So I have a t-shirt and I put a hoodie on. I'm, I think, the first reporter on because it was just after the newscast ended. And we just start talking about what we're feeling. Pretty soon another reporter pops up because now they start calling people because they can, and they never would have done this pre-pandemic. But now we have all of our equipment at home. We're learning new ways. Someone pops up in her pajamas. Then another reporter comes with a baby in her arms that's kind of crying because the quake woke them up. And what the bosses have determined from all of this is that people like seeing us in our, like we're zoo animals, in our natural environments. And they like seeing us at home, maybe not dressed up as much as we normally are on television. I find it a little creepy sometimes when someone will send me a private message somehow to say, "I have that same book," because I was standing in front of my bookcase. Well, what they have to do is take a still shot and then zoom in on you to find out what you're reading. So it's been a little weird as far as that goes, but it's been a little bit more fun, and we've been told that we're never going back to the way it used to be. So television news right now is an absolute work in progress. It's fun to be a part of, and it's a little scary if you're not particularly technical like myself. As far as internship goes, if any young person who's still in school is interested in talking to me about that idea, I am happy to talk to you. Right now, they're slowly bringing interns back, but I don't know that you get the full benefit because most of them are done virtually. And it's a lot different than, like for me, being on a red carpet or me sending somebody to a red carpet with some instructions. It's not the same one-on-one reaction. And I'm lucky because I've been doing it long enough that when I now see somebody that I'm going to be interviewing, speaking of which, do you remember Mort Krim? I'm interviewing him tomorrow, a big, long-time Detroit anchor. Anyway, if you know somebody, at least they feel the connection online. If it's the first time you're interviewing somebody, it's harder now. And I'm guessing if you do that for print, it's the same thing. But I feel like I'm learning again every day in this new world order of how do we report the news and how do I stay relevant. I cover show business. If I wasn't in LA, I don't know that my job would be relevant. But since this is the entertainment capital of the world, I guess it is. So that's it. Mike?
Thanks, George. That was terrific. And I'm so happy you got your technology figured out to join us. I do want to say that I think before I introduce Dr. Diedrich that, writing well is probably the most important thing and the greatest gift I got from Albion or received from Albion. When I got to Columbia University and I wrote my first piece, professors there were like, wow, we didn't expect this out of someone your age who hadn't worked at a daily. So I was really blessed by my professors and mentors. So Dr. Diedrich, having said that, why don't you give us some reflection about, I know there's a lot of faces on this who have been influenced by your mentorship, and I kind of want you to take a little bow, buddy.
He has to unmute.
Thanks, Will. Will is always the person who reminds me of things I need to do before I can actually start speaking to people and getting things accomplished. But I wanted to shout out to many of the wonderful past editors that I've worked with over the years, mostly in the 80s and 90s, some in the early 21st century. But I wanted to mention, of course, Jim and George. And you can tell from George's conversation how much fun it was to work with George. He was always providing comic relief when most needed on the Pleiad staff and with my mentorship. But I wanted to mention Ann Hunter, William Chang, Jim, of course, Jim Anderson, wonderful comments you made. Susan Everett, Susan Houlihan, Mary Bidet, Michael Haynes, of course, for organizing all of this. I'm really grateful to you. You've given us as much as I hope I gave you as your advisor. I think I may be missing some names, but I wanted to at least acknowledge the people who are here because I've worked so closely with you, and really in my many decades as a professor, the most rewarding experiences I had were mentoring and working closely with students outside the technical classroom in Baldwin Hall on 3rd floor in the Pleiad offices with gifted people like yourselves. I think I want to mention and make a theme of my remarks, risk-taking and risk-takers. Because as I think about people like, Leslie Karros, I didn't mention you, and I think about people like Leslie and George and Jim and Anne and Susan Houlihan, Susan Everett, Suzanne Everett, Mary. I think of you all as risk takers because deciding to step up as an editor or a member of the editorial staff or even reporter for a student newspaper requires a lot of courage. It requires a lot of risk taking. You're putting yourself out there. You're taking yourself out of the classroom and you're putting yourself in the public eye for everyone at on the campus, your fellow students, staff, faculty, and oftentimes the larger community up for scrutiny. You know, your words, your statements, your reporting are all being viewed well beyond the classroom. And so to me, it's really an act of courage and risk-taking on the part of anyone who enters into the world of journalism. And Jordan Ravenaugh, who I've just met tonight, knows this very well. Even moving into the digital realm, you're going to get comments and critiques and sometimes pushback from your readership. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about risk taking, and I want to connect it with something that Rick said. I want to mention, by the way, that I took a risk in accepting the job as advisor to the Pleiad. I remember way back in 1980 in a Chicago hotel room having an interview with the great Charles Krupe, who at the time was chair of the English department. And he was suggesting that I join the English department, not only because of my interest in scholarship and my writing on Charles Dickens and other Victorian journalists, but because I had some journalism experience myself. I'd been editor of my high school paper, college paper. I'd done some freelance work for other newspapers, and he wanted me to advise the Pleiad. And I asked him, well, what can you tell me about the Pleiad? And he said, well, one thing I can tell you is that Richard Smith was on the editorial staff of the Pleiad in the 60s. And I was at that time a loyal subscriber to Newsweek. And I knew that Rick Smith was willing to, as he put it earlier, raise some hell professionally and with very careful research as editor of Newsweek. I'll never forget a cover story that I think Rick probably had to approve, whose title was "The Secret War in Nicaragua." And this was at the time of Ronald Reagan's presidency. And it was an investigative piece, a very brave, pardon me?
I remember it well.
Yes, I'm sure you do. I'm sure you got a lot of hell for it. But the reason I bring it up is that I think a good journalist is always willing to take those risks and to raise hell when it's important to do so. And so when Charles mentioned that Rick Smith has been a part of the Pleiad tradition, I said, well, I guess maybe I can take a risk and try to advise that newspaper if someone like Rick Smith was involved with it. One of the first things I did when I came to Michigan actually was talk with Jim Dean, who also had been a Pleiad advisor, who was then a reporter and editor at the Battle Creek Inquirer. And I did a faculty externship one summer at the Battle Creek Inquirer. And it's interesting, I ended up doing a series of investigative articles myself about the McGraw-Edison plant, which built air conditioners in Albion and contributed to one of the big Superfund sites in the United States that the EPA had to help clean up because they were pouring trichloroethylene onto the parking lot, the gravel parking lot, to cut down on dust. And they also used it as a degreaser in their factory. And it turns out that trichloroethylene is a carcinogen. It had once been used, among other things, to decaffeinate coffee. And so I dug into EPA reports and did a whole series of articles for the Battle Creek Inquirer about the use of trichloroethylene and the restrictions put on McGraw-Edison. And it was a good training to go into becoming the Pleiad advisor and encouraging students to raise some responsible hell. And I want to mention two events, two topics that the Pleiad, I think, covered with great courage. One of them was the divestment debate on campus, which raged for several years. And the Pleiad took real leadership role in investigating the ways in which the endowment of Albion College was invested in stocks doing business in South Africa. And this led to investigative research trips by President Volgamore and Frank Frick and other faculty members and students to South Africa to talk to people involved in the divestment debate. And it led to a series of Sullivan principles being adopted by the trustees of the college. And I think that the Pleiad is to be commended for pursuing that story, even when there was some pushback. And of course, there was some dissatisfaction among some trustees about the coverage of that story. There was also coverage of the spraying of 2,4-D on the college lawns because it kept the dandelions in check, but it was also a carcinogen, I think involved in lymphatic cancer, the least concerns about lymphatic cancer. And the Pleiad again covered that controversy very responsibly. I have to mention one headline that was written during Mo Arvoy's editorship of the Pleiad during the divestment debate. I'm sorry Mo isn't with us tonight, but some members of the student group protesting our investments or Albion's investments in South Africa built a shanty on the quad of the campus, a wooden shanty. And some administrators were unhappy with this, so they had campus safety take it down after several days. And then it got into a kind of cat and mouse game where the students would put it back up at night. campus safety would come and take it down. And finally, an agreement was reached with physical plant or campus safety that they would be in charge of putting it back up whenever it was taken down. So the Pleiad, under Mo Arvoy's editorship, wrote a headline, which will live in infamy or fame, depending on your perspective. The headline read, "Physical plant in charge of erections." And the story, of course, went on to talk about them reconstructing the shanty. I see Susan Houlihan is laughing, and perhaps in recognition and remembrance of that story. But I really just want to say that I'm grateful to have worked with such an incredibly talented group of students over a 20-year period, 20-year plus period. I've been teaching now for, gosh, I guess 5 decades. I've taught in California, I've taught in Michigan, I've taught at the Newberry Library in Chicago, I've taught for 15 years now at Agnes Scott College in Atlanta, an all-women's college. And I was really gratified to provide leadership opportunities for women at Albion College, because I noticed as a professor at Albion that the men in the classroom were often willing to speak no matter what they had on their minds, and the women were a little more in the wings waiting for the right moment to speak. And the Pleiad gave women a chance to step up and be leaders and be heard and not have to wait for men. So I really am happy that so many women were Pleiad editors under my mentorship. So I think that's all I'll say for now. I'd love to hear from some of our former editors.
Thank you, Jim. I think we're going to try to hear from everybody. I hope you can stay on, everybody can stay on long enough. And, if you have to go, you have to go. I just put into the chat to everyone the five questions again. I don't know if they showed up or not. That we'll get to that in just a second, but I want to introduce now Garrett Hogadorn, who works for the college. He's going to give us a little quick update on what's going on in campus and town, just to bring everybody up to speed, and then we'll close the formal portion and get chatting with everybody.
Perfect.
So,
thanks, Mike. And I want to say thanks everybody too for joining. I'll be very brief so that way you guys can share more time together. And if you have more questions about what's happening on campus, you can always reach out to me via email or my cell phone. I'll post in the chat as well, and we can talk further. But I'm going to talk a little bit about enrollment first. And so this past year, we had 1,389 students on campus. In fall 2020, we matriculated 548 students, which is a great number during a pandemic. And we had our largest ever cohort in January of transfer students. For fall 2021, our applications are up 50%. Last fall, we had 4,200 year over year, and this year we have 6,300. So this past year, Dr. Johnson decided to remain residential and in person during the pandemic. And we really think that we did a really great job about it. We were able to keep COVID to a minimum on campus. And so our academic performance of students after returning home in March 2020 made it clear that the first generation in high financial need and Black and Latinx students fared far worse academically when at home than did peers with college educated parents. So we wanted to make sure that Albion was equitable for everybody. So we decided to remain on campus, and then we brought students back and we did comprehensive health testing and policies, and we were able to keep all students and faculty safe. And fall 2021 will be full in-person classes with the traditional semester ahead. Then some academic programs and initiatives. Albion is to offer their first ever master's degree in accounting starting fall 2021. And then Albion is to offer post-baccalaureate pre-med certifications this summer. And then we also have partnerships with Western Michigan to offer a guaranteed seat in medical school for qualified high school seniors and fast-track master's degrees in political science and comparative religion. So the AC3 is led by Dr. Vicki Baker and E&M partnering with Albion businesses and nonprofits to consult, communicate, build sustainability processes with escalating levels of responsibility as a student advances. A short community update. I could go on for hours about this one, but we have acquired the Washington Gardner High School. We have a 300,000 square foot development of college and community space at Washington Gardner on Michigan Avenue. The space is going to house the health and wellness, performing and visual arts, community theater, and NCAA compliant basketball venue. The YMCA partnership is to offer wellness programs to campus and community members. And that actually started March 8th. We had our first on live YMCA on campus with community members, and we're super proud of that. And then we also launched Albion Care, which is a 24-hour, 365 days per year service that gives Albion students free access to primary medical care, mental health counseling, and nutritionist counseling as well. And then a brief update on college diversity and profile initiatives. Albion College has traditionally comprised of 95% white and 95% state of Michigan. And that is drastically changing in the future. And as of today, the trustees have determined that this profile is neither desirable nor sustainable. Today's makeup is 65-35. 43% of last fall's matriculating class identified as a person of color. Dr. Johnson appointed Keno Williams, class of 2009, to the chief belonging officer at a cabinet level post. And then every department and entity tasked with publishing a DE&I plan has been tasked with establishing a DE&I plan to promote belonging. And then our rankings this past year, so we were ranked #1 and #2 by Michigan liberal arts colleges according to money.com and Washington Monthly by those two organizations. And then we were ranked by the College Gazette as a top liberal arts college on the rise. And then there's an independent article profile of the college in the link that Mr. Mike Haynes shared. So if you have any questions about any of those quick updates, let me know. I'm happy to expand and answer any questions you guys may have, but I want to be respectful of your guys' time together.
Thanks, Garrett. I see Ann Hunter asked a question in the chat about what you attribute those stats to. I just want to say, Garrett, you know, I'm on the alumni board and I talk to a lot of different departments. So I am the one who compiled those statistics through conversations with the admissions department and other points on campus. Really the only point to bringing that up is if people haven't been connected to campus in a long time, I just wanted you to know some of the things that are going on in and around town and what the current makeup of the class is, as I have a son there now and another son who's a recent graduate. So I talk to a lot of people about Albion every day. So thanks, Garrett. Okay, I'm gonna try to close this out real quick. We're at 7:55, but I want to, hopefully people can stay on. Some action items that if there's some takeaways that I'd like everybody to think about, you know, how you can connect with the college, what's meaningful to you. I'm going to post those bullet points in the chat, and then I'm going to share a screen right now just for a couple of seconds. Maybe talk about those. Everybody's, I gotta switch my app here. Can everybody see that okay? Action items and acknowledgements? Yeah, no, yes. Okay, thumbs up. Great. So a couple things we can do. We can subscribe to the Pleiad. I think that's the easiest thing to do. And somebody asked about Pleiad Archives. I think Dr. Diedrich asked earlier. So the Pleiad Archives are online, except for the years 2000 to 2009. You can also make a donation to the Pleiad, and I'll talk about why you may want to do that through the website, the advancement website. You can also consider, like Jim and George are doing, to develop an internship for current collegiate Pleiad members. You could also refer a high school student, and I do this pretty often. I'm a Boy Scout leader. I help develop a scholarship for Boy Scouts who are Eagle Scouts and Girl Scouts who are Gold Award recipients. But you as an alumnus can refer a student, and with your referral, they'll get $1,000 a year over the 4 years because of your recommendation. And then the last thing you can do is write a review on niche.com. Niche.com is a composite site that ranks a lot of different schools, not just four-year colleges, but a lot of different academic programs. It's one of the measuring tools that parents and high school students making decisions about colleges, they look at alumni profiles and what the reviews from alumni say. So if your Albion experience was one that you value, I would encourage you to go to that website. The link is in the chat, or it's also here online if you want to take a screenshot. And one of the things that gets measured in these reviews is what is the number of what is the percentage of alumni who make a contribution to the college in any given annual year. And so that's why I make small gift donations to the college, and I'll designate my next one to the Pleiad. And I hope you'll join me in doing that. And then finally, I just want to say thank you to the college archivist, Elizabeth Palmer, because I'm going to show another little clip here in just a second of different Pleiad covers throughout the Pleiad's history. And I want to thank Garrett for hosting us tonight and for taking time out of his Sunday night to join all these Pleiad people. So thank you, Garrett. And then the next thing I want to do is ask everybody to open the participant list, and we're going to start with someone to introduce ourselves, go through the lightning round, tell us who you are, what your class year is, what your role was on the Pleiad, and how you're, like a 30-second, if we can go, there's a lot of us on here, so 30 seconds would take us probably half an hour. I don't know. Let's see how we do, okay? So I'm going to turn it over to Catherine Schindler.
Okay. I'm Kathy Schindler, class of 1967. I'm a person who tends to think in big concepts, and my writing was run on, to put it best. And Rick Smith had a good red pen, and I learned from the Pleiad much more about clear thinking and how to write concisely. How did I use this and where I am? Where am I? I'm a United Methodist minister. And if Rick's around, he knows I was one of those troublemakers in '67. And ironically, I'm an Air Force chaplain, and I'm a retired colonel in Tucson. And what it helped me for the most was in terms of working with my staff to help them clarify their writing. It's amazing how many seminary graduates can't write a clear sentence. And all those awful or voluminous Air Force reports I had to do that had to be very precisely done. The final thing I'd say is talking about stress. I had a job in which I had 15 minutes to decide whether or not I would put a chaplain team on a plane within 3 hours headed to a contingency somewhere. And that ability to stop and think clearly under deadline is also something I learned from the Pleiad.
Look, Catherine. Thank you. I want to try this. Let me see if this will work. If I share this, I just want to show you some Pleiad covers, but maybe we can split our screen and we can see the speaker and also look at these images. I think in the upper right hand, you can still see people in the list and then see the Pleiad cover. So Catherine, would you pick somebody from the participant list to go next?
Arbitrarily, I'm going to pick Jordan.
Okay, so I'm Jordan. I am a current senior, so class of 21. I have been editor-in-chief the past 2 years. Before that, I was opinions and managing editor. My staff likes to make fun of me for having the most opinions out of everyone on staff, which if you know me, you know that's the thing. And I would say in terms of what the Pleiad helped me with the most, the biggest lesson that it's taught me is just the fact that I can't do everything on my own. Everyone who knows me knows that I'm very much an individual kind of person. I like to take on as much as I possibly can and see how much I can do. But I think especially having the majority of my time as editor-in-chief be during a pandemic when it's physically impossible to do things on your own really forced me to realize that I have to, I can't bear all the weight on my own. I have to, spread things out and lean on people and let people help me. And I think the biggest thing that taught me in terms of the Pleiad is just to rely on your resources and build a community of people to support you. And I don't know, I love my staff and I love being able to have connections with alumni outside of our current staff as well. So I think that's the biggest thing with the Pleiad is just the community.
You get to pick the next speaker.
Okay, I'm gonna popcorn it to Bo Brockett.
I love the popcorn method. Throwback to high school there. I'm Bo Brockett. I'm from the class of 2019. I was editor-in-chief for my senior year of the Pleiad, and then for the 2 years prior, I was managing editor. Since graduating in 2019, I spent about a year as the daily reporter for the Niles and Buchanan area of Michigan, which is right above South Bend, Indiana. And then, about a year and a week, from today, I switched over and I now work in communications for the Michigan Environmental Council. The Pleiad was definitely one of the best experiences I had on campus, and there were many great experiences that I had. And in each of my roles, whether it be in an internship or in these two like post-college jobs that I've had, it's really helped me a lot. I'd say the two biggies would be first, it helped me put the pedal to the metal if I needed, to get something done at work. It's always tough to balance a full course load and then something like the Pleiad on top of it, but it's very rewarding. So I graduated college with a very deadline-oriented mindset when it came to work, and that definitely helped working for a daily paper, and it's definitely helped now working in communications. It also, I think, maybe a bit more holistically, the Pleiad taught me to like really appreciate a community and to like really love it and want to be like really involved with it. So even though I'm not involved so much in a community now as a communications person for a statewide org, I really want to like do community work, and I am doing community work in my life outside of work, and I think that largely stemmed from the Pleiad. I will choose the next person right below Jordan on my screen, which is Will Chang, class of '89.
Hi, can you hear me? Okay, good. I'm Will Chang. I graduated in '89. During most of my tenure at the Pleiad, I was both the director of photography and managing editor, editor-in-chief, and a few other titles, which I think I've forgotten by now. I was the editor, or I was the managing editor or the editor-in-chief when Mo Arvoy came up with that erection headline. For those that are more recent staffers at the Pleiad, is the Fleet Street little placard still on one of the doors outside the editing room? I was the one that put that up there back in 1989 after I'd done an internship with UPI. Anyway, did a lot of different things, worked for newspapers in Fort Wayne, High Poly, Cincinnati at the Inquirer. I worked at Newsday for a while out in Long Island, and then I spent the bulk of my journalism career at the AP. I was there at least 8 years as a news person, and then I became a recruiter for the AP for about another 5 years. I moved into academia after doing an adjunct professorship at Columbia University for a few years, both for SIPA, the School of International and Public Affairs, as well as the J School. Left AP, went to the City University of New York's Graduate School of Journalism, worked as an academic advisor running their internship program for a few years. Ended up at Hong Kong, at the University of Hong Kong, doing the same thing before coming back here. And now I'm just sort of taking care of family stuff and, looking for my next opportunity. For those of you that are interested in internships and whatever, please feel free to contact me. I'm happy to give any advice, for my years as a recruiter, as well as doing editing for your resumes. My time at the Pleiad taught me how to work with some difficult people. It taught me how to become try to become a good editor, helping other writers improve on their own work. And I don't know, unlike Jordan, I did take on a lot of responsibility as well. And, you know, to a certain extent, every week that I was there, I did feel the responsibility of making sure we met deadline. We made up, you know, that we always came through with our production schedule, you know, including writing a few very last minute stories that ended up going into the paper stuff. So anyway, that's all I have to say for now, unless somebody has a question. Michael, you're muted. I think you have to click on your own
Yeah,
photo.
there it is. Yeah, I was running the thing. Anyway, you get to pick the next speaker.
Oh, okay. I'll pick Polly Smith because I worked with her at the News Sentinel in Fort Wayne.
It's so exciting to hear what you've done since then. I mean, you were just out of college when we worked together in Fort Wayne. But the Pleiad was everything to me when I was at Albion. Ask any of my professors, Dr. Dietrich, but also my economics professors who got me through somehow as an economics major, because I really wanted to write about finance and business, and it worked. So I'll just say I was there. I was determined to be the editor of the paper, so I was really happy that worked out. I wasn't a very good writer, and yet I got to do it. And I ended up at Columbia University J School. One of the reasons I felt compelled that I could do it was I met Rick Smith. He let me come to his office and interview him for the alumni magazine. He said, "You can go there." And I said, "I don't have the grades." And he said, "Doesn't matter." So the confidence from alumni. There was also the editor, the first female editor of Audubon magazine. She was a female editor of the Pleiad because of the war. There were no men around. And she took me around New York. And another labor writer for Knight Ridder did the same thing because they were Albion grads who went into journalism. And I mean, the alumni are wonderful. I'm sorry, I'm going on and on. So anyway, I went to Albion. I majored in economics and English, and spent so much time. I remember my favorite stories were writing about why were we losing so many African-American students, and what was the college going to do about it. And it was really interesting. Methodist Church came up with money to recruit more students, and you look back and think of the things we wrote about. So I went to Columbia, went to work in South Carolina, went to work in Indiana. I had the privilege of working with Will Chang. And now I'm in Chicago. I was at the Sun-Times as a business editor and writer, or deputy business editor and writer for 13 years. And I went into content marketing, social media at a hospital, which is exciting. And by the way, if you ever see somebody in marketing or media relations at a hospital, they're probably a journalist. It's like the #1 favorite thing to do after journalism, because I just get to write fascinating stories about people. Now I'm doing media relations. That's about it.
Thanks, Polly. That's great to hear about you. We haven't.
It's good to see you, Michael.
It's great to see you too.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And George, I have followed George on Twitter for forever, and I was just so thrilled when I saw what he was doing for a living. And Jim Anderson, we've run into each other once or twice, and I'm so excited to see him here too, and I'm sure there are others.
Thanks, Polly. Pick the next speaker.
Jim Anderson. Oh,
he can.
Is Jim Anderson still on?
If you look in the participant list, it should say.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Hold on, I'm still here.
He has to mute.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Hey,
Yes.
Polly, wonderful to see you. I already did speak. I don't know if you heard me earlier, but just really wonderful to see everyone and to hear all the great things that people are doing. And we have that wonderful common bond of our Pleiad experience and many English majors from the English department. And really am so glad that we did this. And I look forward that we can hopefully keep this connection going with all of us. It's been a really special evening. So I am going to turn it over to Ann Hitler. Ann.
Can you hear me? So yes, my name really was Hitler. I changed it when I turned 40. Problematic name to have, but I just moved it into my middle name and we still have it. I'm one of 5 Albion siblings who went to, or one of 5 siblings who went to Albion out of the 9 of us. When I was at the Pleiad, I was the assignments editor I think because I was involved in a lot of campus activities and figured that would be the way that I had a pulse on what was going on. One of my favorite memories, well, couple, one was doing boogie for books with George, where we had to stay up all night and dance for 24 hours and raise money to raise money for the books for the library or something.
Mm-hmm.
Jim drawing a portrait of you for your mother for her birthday when you had like 3 days notice and didn't have a gift. And I think it was, anyway, weird stories. The third one was, I got assigned, not by me, but by somebody else who wasn't the assignment editor, to write a book about drinking on campus. And I was paired with another writer, and we put this thing in, and we got called in front of the trustees to talk about the writing or the drinking problem on campus. And we had to defend our research and where we came up with it. And basically it was, Albion has a drinking problem, and so does every other campus in the country. And so then they've said, okay, well, all right, at least we have some context here and you may go. And we were sweating bullets on that one. But to Jim Diedrich's point, we were taking on issues that were, sorry, it's my husband's phone. I don't know how to turn it off. We were taking on issues that were gnarly. It wasn't the easy stuff. Had just a wonderful experience there and went on to make my living basically as a writer. I worked in the arts for Minnesota Orchestra and the St. Paul Chamber Orchestra. Then I ran a marketing company for 20 some years, taught at a couple of colleges, adjunct, and now I run a theater company in Charlottesville, Virginia. I'm working on my accent. That's enough for right now. I'll turn it over to, how about, can't see all the names here, just a second. How about Ryan?
Hello, it's Ryan. Is that who you meant? I'm Ryan Lewis. I graduated in 1998. I only took a couple Pleiad classes. They were key to what turned out to be a career. I got a job at the Allegan County News in 2002 in Southwest Michigan. And Southwest Michigan, our paper, that was ground zero for, I don't know if anybody recalls the state representative who was expelled. That was our state rep. What a crazy few years that was. So yeah, I started in 2002 just as a rewrite guy. I had to recall all of my journalism with Jim and with Ian McInnes. He was the advisor by the time I took the editing course, and I really enjoyed it. I wasn't terribly good at it. It was kind of intimidating for me at that point in my life in terms of journalism, and but you know, I recalled it when it came to be my job. And at a small weekly newspaper, you learn to just put on all the hats and do everything, and it was the joy of my life to do that for so long. I became editor of that paper, as well as we had like 3 small weekly papers in a group out there, mostly in Allegan. And 2009, I became editor, and I got out of it kind of mid-pandemic. About my last month was July 2020, or 2020. So I guess I wanted to do a shout out. I haven't had the illustrious careers of many people who have been speaking, but a shout out to the small weekly papers, because they really give a lot of experience and a lot of hands-on. You get your clips, you get used to talking to people, you get used to, you know, Jim was talking about putting himself up for scrutiny. You know, I suddenly became editor in 2009 after the previous editor died. He was a mentor. I worked with him for years, and suddenly I had to write the column, and boy, you're putting yourself out there then. So I'm really appreciative, and now I have a child calling for me. I'll turn it over to Leslie Karros. Thank you so much. It's nice to see everybody.
Hi there. Let me know if I am creating an echo. because I had the speakers blasting at the same time. I am class of 86, and I was editor-in-chief, for better or worse. And I'm in the Chicago suburbs now, and I've worn a number of hats over the years. After Albion, I ended up going into journalism briefly, and I noticed that as the years went by, the schedules got longer. So I started out in daily, and then it became weekly, and then I went into books where the schedule is sometimes a year or longer. And I stayed in book editing for a long time. I'm still a freelance book editor, but I also, while at Albion, was involved with the radio station. And that experience really stayed with me. And I think I decided to relive my youth about, I'm going to say about 15 years ago, when I got back into radio kind of by accident. And now I actually spend more time on the radio than I do editing books. So I have a daily jazz program here in the suburbs of Chicago, which is a lot of fun. In terms of what the Pleiad taught me, I would agree with everybody about how it hones your writing skills. It certainly honed my editing skills, and it forced me to be concise and to be economical, but it also forced me to think about how to tell a story. The kinds of questions you need to ask to bring out the story may be different from what you think about when you go in to talk to someone. And it's the ability to keep an open mind and really listen to the person you're talking to find what the story is. So I would say that the Pleiad is what gave me that interest in what someone else had to tell me, and, you know, by extension, my listeners or my readers. So that would be it, I guess, from me. How about Brian?
Hey, how's it going? My name is Brian Cameron. I graduated class of 07, and I was a features writer and editor on the Pleiad, and I was also the station manager for the on-campus radio station. Now I live in Fort Worth, Texas. Actually, I've lived here for several decades now, and I work in marketing, much like Jim Anderson. Marketing and PR was the route I decided to go with my journalism degree, and I work as a copywriter for a subsidiary of the United Health Group. I guess for the abundance of time, just to save time here, I guess I would say to the current students, if you haven't been over to the career office and gotten a resume made or worked with them to do that, that's really important, especially right now. So I would strongly recommend doing that. And also the importance of beating the ATS, which is what you're going to run into when you're applying to jobs nowadays. The applicant tracking system is the AI that your resume has to get past when you're applying to jobs. So definitely look into that when you begin looking for jobs out there. And I will pass it on to Diane.
Hi, I was at the Pleiad in the mid 80s. I graduated in 87, and my career's taken a little bit different route. I was an English teacher for 15 years at middle school and high school, and now I'm a school librarian at a K-8 school. And the big thing that I learned from the Pleiad, and I was also a publicist for the theater department, and short, sweet, to the point. And that's what I always taught my students. You know, you don't need to go rambling on. I don't need 20 pages. I want 4. That's it, 4. And I also, and the thing that has always stuck with me, that Dr. Durdick told me, always, 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 always spell the name right, which is the other thing I teach my kids, I teach my students, and nobody likes to see their name spelled wrong in anything. So, and Albion really helped you a lot as a teacher, as a writer. In grad school, it really made a difference because, again, I got my point across. And I'm very grateful for the opportunity that I had as a reporter and then as the events editor. And just, it was a wonderful time that I had. And I'm going to move it on to Angela.
Hey, everybody, I'm Angela Doolin, class of 2005. I was a reporter for the Pleiad probably back half of 2003 or so. I had a journalism class with Dr. Diedrich, also a Dickens class, Dr. Diedrich, which was awesome. Really enjoyed that. I was the opinion page editor, and my senior year was editor-in-chief in the second half of my senior year, after doing an off-campus internship in the first half with the New York Arts Program. Today I work in ed tech as a product manager. I work mostly in the library market. So we make ebooks, archives, and databases for academic, public, and K-12 libraries. So I'm not really writing so much, except in a business context. And I'd say that the Pleiad really, like everyone here has said, helped me really hone my writing and editing skills, taught me how to present an idea clearly. I would also say good judgment was a big part of my experience, learning experience at the Pleiad. You know, sometimes we'd have things, especially on the opinion pages, that, you know, maybe didn't get vetted super properly before they were about to go to press. And then it was like, oh, we got to pull this, we got to substitute something else. So yeah, also that adaptability and flexibility, especially when you're working to a deadline. All right, I'm going to popcorn it to, how about Andrew W.
Hi there, everyone. I don't know why my last name cut off, but my name is Andrew Witland, class of 2019. I was sports editor my junior, senior year, and also marketing coordinator my senior year, I believe. I have so many great memories of the Pleiad. I'm currently, for now, in Grand Rapids, working for Priority Health as a copywriter, so similar to, I think, was that Brian? We're in the same kind of field there. So I work as a copywriter, and definitely a lot of hand in hand from what I learned at the Pleiad, especially, you know, being able to be open to feedback and take edits and all that stuff is such an important process. And just to collaborate effectively with others, it's all stuff I learned at the Pleiad and enjoyed greatly. I have a lot of fun and fond memories there. I think my junior year, we had a short-lived sports podcast with my good friend Lucas Lusk, who's not on this call, but we had some great times. And that's even cooler now is that I see they've started the Brit podcast, which I think we talked about doing some sort of podcast. It was a small conversation, but it's got a full-fledged thing. So that's super cool and really excited. And I've listened to many episodes. I've been very impressed. So we like that a lot. And yeah, just shout out to the people who here on this call from my time. I mean, Bo, Jordan, Steve, Krista, my advisor, Alex, Carey. A lot of great memories, and great to see everyone tonight.
Go ahead and pick the next
sorry.
speaker. Yeah.
I'll popcorn it to Claire Van Raphorst.
Hi. All right. Well, this is really fun to do. My name is Claire Van Rampurse. I graduated in 2014. My freshman year, it was quite a to-do. In the first 2 weeks, I wrote a story about a gay pride flag being burned on campus, and it made national news. And I was 18, and I was way over my head, but it really gave me some good taste. And it was we had just gone to the digital version of the Pleiad, so it was just kind of like living on in infamy. After that, we kind of saw like a generation of Pleiad people leave. So me and a couple of my classmates rebuilt it. And so I ended up being editor-in-chief and managing editor the last 3 or so years. So I really learned a lot because I went kind of straight into management. It was all about like, how do you convince college kids to turn in a story on time if you can't actually punish them in any way? You just like really hope they do it. So I feel like I learned a lot of social skills and management skills of managing fellow 20-something-year-olds. So post Albion, I went into the nonprofit sector for many years, wore many hats there and wrote a ton. And then I transitioned into corporate communications and marketing. And now all of a sudden I'm all the way into like digital campaign strategy. But I think the whole time it's been so important not only to just learn about all the good and bad judgments we made as students, learning how to manage people, learning how to try not to ruin the administration's lives. We had a lot of fun, but all of that kind of carried into me, into my professional career. And I'm actually at Wayne State University getting a master's of communication right now. So I'm like lightly doing homework on the side because working full time and going to school is hard. But I think that's about it. I hope I hit it all, but I would like to go to Alex Carey next.
Oh, thanks, Claire. Yeah, so good to see so many familiar faces. Yeah, so I'm Alex. I graduated in 2016. I was managing editor of the Pleiad in my senior year and then a staff writer before that. I think the things, I wrote the article about Hillsdale for the Plebeian that got some attention about Hillsdale shutting down and Albion to absorb its students. So that was me. Yeah, and then actually before that, as a staff writer, I also wrote an article that got us into a moratorium. So I had quite the career on the Pleiad. So it was quite a good, it wasn't a good time at the time, but it's, looking back, we made it through. So currently I'm a user experience researcher. I work for Google and I'm based in Madison, Wisconsin. Before that, I was in grad school at the University of Michigan. And before that, I was a marketing coordinator at a small automotive company in the Metro Detroit area. And I actually got that job because my manager in that job's sister went to Albion and she read the Pleiad. And as an alumni, she saw some articles and I guess suggested me for the job, and then I got the job. So it not only did the Pleiad literally help me get my first job, but it's the skills I learned on the Pleiad, to just echo everyone else, has been so important. In my current job at Google, I write a lot of reports. I'm a researcher, so being able to write and edit is one of the key things I do, and that all started at the Pleiad. So, yeah. Let's see, is Tess still on the call, or did she leave?
She had to jump off, but Tess is in law school right now, so I feel like that's another really interesting avenue you can take post Pleiad times.
Cool. Well, then I'll pass it to Stephen.
Steve, graduated in 2018, and I was the editor-in-chief my senior year. I worked my way up as a staff writer, then sports editor and managing editor as well. And right now, after graduating, I worked for a small daily newspaper in Owasso, Michigan. And now I'm a higher education reporter for MLive. I cover University of Michigan and higher education for the state. So that includes Albion. So I guess I'm kind of one of their competitors right now. But with the Pleiad, it really taught me a lot about kind of knowing your audience when you write, because we had two different kinds of audiences. It was both the college community and the city of Albion. And, working where I do now in Ann Arbor, it's really about writing for the community and informing community members, as opposed to writing for a college or a corporate body like that. So that was a big takeaway for me from my time with the Pleiad. So yeah, I think that's it from me. I'll pass it off to Craig Miller.
Hey, good evening. Thanks, Stephen. Craig Miller, I graduated in 1977. I started at the Pleiad as a freshman, writing news and sports stories. My father was a reporter for the Detroit News at the time, and I thought I wanted to get into journalism. I went on to be sports editor for about a year and a half, and then was selected by Steve Drake, who was the director of public relations at Albion, to get into public relations. So I spent my last year working with Mr. Drake, and he was one of the ones we've heard over and over here who constantly told me to write. And I look back at my writing, it was terrible. As we probably all feel like at times. And, you know, a lot of the great stories here for people were news breaking type things. And my biggest memory of the Pleiad was as sports editor. I also played football and lacrosse. I wrote a story when we lost a football game that we had lost the chance to win the MIA football championship, which resulted in me getting called into the head coach's office and explain how, as a football player, I could write that we had no chance to win the championship anymore. And so I think I learned at that time how to stand up for yourself a little bit. I learned about credibility and knowing the facts and being able to speak to yourself. My career has taken a little different path like you all. I went and worked for the Milford Times for about 2 years. And the most important thing I learned at the Milford Times was while writing obituaries is spell the name right. Otherwise, you had to deal with the phone call, and that was never pleasant. I went on to really get into a public relations in the athletic field. I worked at Villanova University for 10 years as their sports information director and as a assistant athletic director for communications. And then I was hired by USA Basketball, which is the Olympic basketball organization. I've been working for them for 31 years. I've been involved in 8 Olympics. So I've traveled the world, and, you know, writing still is what I tell people. When I select interns or assistants, that's the first thing I look for. And it's the thing that I emphasize to everybody. So that's essentially my career. I don't know. I guess I'll go Bo. Have you been picked?
Yes, I have, unfortunately.
Sorry. Someone raise your hand because I've lost track.
Pick
We've heard so many
Colleen.
great stories. Melissa, go ahead. That'd be great.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Melissa Davies. I graduated from Albion in 1993. I was editor-in-chief my senior year, and I had some other roles in the years before that, managing editor, news editor, I think. After I left Albion, I went to work for a legal newspaper in Philadelphia for a couple of years. And then my career has sort of wound into different ways. Like many of you are saying, now I work at Mondelez, which is a name you probably don't know, but it's the company that makes Oreo cookies, Trident gum, Cadbury chocolate. So a lot of good snacks. And I do social media market research there. So it's looking at, it's related to social media. What are consumers talking about on social media, and how can we use that to understand, you know, what new snacks they need? I would say, you know, when you're in market research, you cannot do the job without being able to tell a story. So, you know, you need that. I learned so much at the Pleiad that has really helped me be able to tell that story and dig deeper to understand why. And that has stayed with me, you know, through my entire career. And I talked to many people, actually both in market research and social media, who, you know, when they find out I have a background in journalism, they say like, aha, yes, oh, I was in journalism. I have some connection to that. So I feel like it's just, it's an undercurrent that's out there that has just prepared me so well for this field. That's it for me. I will pass it to Susan Hallahan, who was one of my partners in crime at the Pleiad.
Indeed, I'm Susan Ferguson Hallahan. I graduated in '95. I was the editor first semester and then managing editor my senior year, and a bunch of other jobs. And I am now a high school English teacher, a newspaper advisor, and yearbook advisor, which I've been doing for like 20 years. And there is nothing quite so interesting as putting together a yearbook for a school year that just had its first in-person day last week. I teach outside Seattle, and kids just came back for the first time this last week. So we're doing this hybrid thing, right? Where half the kids come every day, and all the grades will be back for the first time tomorrow. So it's kind of crazy. You know, in addition to everything everyone else has said, I just sort of think a lot about like that crazy third floor in Baldwin. All of you youngs never got to experience the crazy third floor of Baldwin with the dark room made out of a shower stall. Okay, so no lies told. There was this, some of you are laughing, there was this crazy bathroom that like always had like clotheslines with film strips that people would develop the film and hang it in this bathroom. And it just sort of, and then we would paste the paper up at the Albion Recorder in the scariest paste up facility I've ever been in my life. So it was still like a daily paper, but it was dark. And I swear there were birds that lived in there, and there were like trays of type all over the place. And this amazing like light table where we would wax up like the full size copies of the paper that had stuff from like the last 20 years like stuck on the board. So it was really cool. You'd go in there all the time and you would just sort of feel like this legacy. And like it's amazing because like, oh, that Fleet Street sign that Will hung, like that was there when I was there. Who knew where it came from? Now I know 20 years later. But it was sort of, I feel like we MacGyvered a lot of solutions and we made a lot of things happen. And, you know, technology was constantly changing and we thought we were really sort of high tech at the time. But, you know, now I look back how stuff has changed over the last 20 years and that being sort of adaptable and going with the flow. And Alex talked about getting in some trouble. I think I was probably the editor that got in the most trouble. We spent a lot of time in publications board, my senior year. But part of it was just the value of there was something that we thought was wrong, being the voice and just kind of not making sure you had all your facts and just not taking no for an answer. You know, when I was there, the secretaries were working without a contract for years and years and years. And we found out some of the administrators were getting huge raises and it was really ugly. You know, there's nothing like getting called on your dorm phone by the vice president for finance at like 8:30 in the morning. But that's sort of what I try to impress on my students. So like you can make a difference. Like you have to kind of be brave, and it's kind of scary when adults like call you on the carpet and question your judgment. But if you know you've done your research and you know that your facts are right, sometimes you have to write those really difficult stories and that you like can change things for the better. So that's sort of what developing a little bit of a thick skin. I'm still working on that a little bit, but you know, that's what sort of stuck with me. And I hope that somewhere along the way, some of the kids that I've had the joy to advise over the years have learned those lessons on. And, you know, most of them aren't becoming journalists, but they're carrying those lessons on at some point in their life. So that's it for me. And who hasn't gone yet? Colleen, why don't you go? We haven't heard from you, I don't think.
Oh, nice to see everybody. I'm Colleen Trummeldale. I'm class of 84. And I can thank Dr. Diedrich for really having me take the risk to get on the Pleiad, because I was a reluctant you know, student in his class, but jumped in with his advice, and very happy I did. So was a news editor, I think, or a staff writer. And then Polly and I together took turns on editor our senior year, and great experience. And I can really say we worked, you know, when I think of going downtown to the Recorder, that's what we did, and went down, and Dr. Dieter was the one who got us the first equipment that was really I think really the first you know, technological advance in terms of that. So that was kind of a big thing, you know, coming on. So yeah, since then I wrote for about 3 years. So I worked for Association magazine, and then I worked for the Saline, Michigan Reporter as the education reporter for a few years. And then I did some freelance, and then I went to law school. And after I went to UNC, moved to Cleveland, Ohio, and I've been working in law ever since, both for a law firm, but for 20 something years in education. So in higher education, so working for 2 different universities, and general counsel at a small university in Cleveland, outside of Cleveland. So, you know, can just say how important, people mentioned law, but how important writing is, and how thankful I am to have had the Pleiad experience to really be able to both, you know, be able to write, which is something, of course, I have to do every day, but write, do the analysis, and I think really be bold, which is something that Dr. Diedrich always taught, you know, to us. And I would just say our years had, you know, maybe not as controversial things, but there were some fraternity issues that went on, and other things. And, you know, when I think back, a big thing was the non-smoking, and us taking the stand in an editorial about, you know, non-smoking on campus. And So for us, that, those seemed, pretty big issues at the time. I do remember one time also learning that about spelling names when we spelled Bob Dylan's name wrong on the front page of the Pleiad. Dr. Diedrich let us know that spelling names is very important. We, definitely learned my lesson there. But anyway, nice to see everybody. I'm not sure who else hasn't gone. I apologize. I was on my phone and then jumped onto Zoom, so.
You're good. I also see Carol Klein's still on the phone, and I saw Lisa just raised her hand too. I want to make sure we also get to Carol. I know it's just her phone number, but I'm gonna ask if Carol wants to speak real quick. If you can, I'll ask to unmute her. I don't know if she can unmute herself or not. I just want to make sure she had the opportunity to speak. Doesn't look like, oh, here she is.
There she is.
Okay, here I am. Thank you. I almost hung up, so I'm astounded I'm still here. I think I win a prize for the oldest person here. Class of 1954. Which makes me 88 years old.
Wow.
So don't ask me what it was like putting out a newspaper. I never did go into publishing or journalism. I did continue doing some more schooling, but I married and had children. But one thing I did do, as a senior, I became eligible for Phi Beta Kappa. And so I moved into the suburbs of Detroit, and I worked with Phi Beta Kappa, and I did eventually become their president of the Detroit Association for 10 years. At that point, I moved to Colorado, which is where I live today. I am in the town of Carbondale, Colorado, which is just down the road from Aspen. Some of you might be skiers, and that's what all these folks around here do, although that is something that I gave up quite some time ago. As I said, I have never really done publishing. However, all of my work has been very involved with writing in different areas. Have now at my age, and especially until COVID, I volunteered for probably 10 different nonprofits in this town and in Aspen. That, of course, has been cut back a great deal. However, I'm still a commissioner in my town of Carbondale, both Public Arts Commission, which is 20 different art sculptures around town that alternate every year, although not last year. We had to keep everything for 2 years. And I am also a commissioner on the public, not Public Arts Commission, that's that one, the Historic Preservation Commission. Even though this town isn't the age of many large cities, we just love our history here. I'm so glad that I did register for this meeting late, so that's why I was at the tail end of the list, but I'm delighted to have heard from all of you, and thank you to Michael for making sure that this was put together, and I would love to see that it gets carried on again in some form. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Carol, and I'm grateful that you stayed on through. I mean, I think it's remarkable. We have more than 20 people still on after 90 or after 105 minutes. So I'm thankful to all of you.
As well.
Yeah, this is great. And Carol, I just want to make a comment. I know there's a current student on staff whose mother is an advisor to Phi Beta Kappa now, moved from Maryland to the Lansing area.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. So anyway, well, thanks for staying on. And I know you can't see everybody who's still on, so I'm gonna choose Lisa Barzak to go next.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Michael, for organizing this, and very grateful for all the opportunities I had at Albion and working on the Pleiad, and special thanks to Professor Diedrich for everything you taught me and everyone who was a staff member at the time. I graduated in 1987, and I was editor of the Pleiad for a semester and had various other positions during my time there. And I had a career where I spent some time working for small local newspapers, sometimes for international organizations, a fair amount of time, in about 24 years in the Washington, D.C. area. And I worked for a Central America organization where I was in charge of the newsletter there. So that was a real helpful set of skills to have for when I was working with the Central America organization, worked with the union. I spent a good 15 years working at the World Bank and ended up moving into project management, contract management, and client services. And the writing skills were invaluable for those kinds of positions, especially when people, especially senior managers, needed analysis. They want it clear, they want it concise, they want to know you've got your facts. And that was one thing that the journalism taught me, was get your facts straight. And sometimes I look at journalism today and I'm thinking, is there enough focus on the facts? But that was something I learned. And the other thing that kind of stuck with me from my Pleiad days, but also from some of my literature background, I don't think I have the quote exactly correct, but who was it? It was Samuel Clemens saying something like, I would have written you a shorter letter if I'd had more time. And that has really stuck with me over the years, that Lisa, take the time and make this report half as long. If I can, cut out what is extraneous and leave what is core there, so that my audience, whoever it is, can focus on the key pieces. So that was something I learned from my time at Albion in general, and with the Pleiad in particular. So, Professor Diedrich, thank you so much for everything you taught me and the whole staff over all those years.
Great to see you again, Lisa. It's been too many years.
A long time.
Krista didn't go yet.
Oh,
Who's left, Melissa?
I spoke.
yeah.
I spoke earlier, so I won't take much time. But for those of you who don't know me, I have been at Albion and advising the Pleiad since fall of 2018. So I think actually only one person on this call has been on the Pleiad less time than I have. I'm the newbie in the group, but I sincerely love it. I think the Pleiad is an incredible institution, and your stories here tonight just attest to that. To be a part of this huge and rich history is just really an honor. And I think Albion is an incredible school doing really important work. So I'm so thrilled to be a part of this faculty. I teach in the English department like Jim did, and I teach occasionally American literature, but mostly professional and technical writing. And I just wanted to highlight something very quickly that's running through this conversation, in addition to the importance of writing and editing and some of those other things. And I just want to remind everyone that part of what makes your experience at the Pleiad so special is the way that this is one of those few student experiences where you do the thing and you get judged on it before anybody else looks at it. No student journalists are asking for permission. No student journalists are having an adult tell them what to do or how to do it or what the next step is. So all of the career accomplishments that you've had, and I'm so proud of my students who are on this call, and I'm so impressed with some of the careers that those of you on the call have had. All of those moves come from that, as Jim was saying, that boldness and that perseverance and that dedication, that ability to do stuff even when you haven't been given permission. And I think that's really powerful and impressive. And I don't think the one other person who's been on the Pleiad less time than I have has gotten to speak yet. So Sam, I'm going to popcorn it to you, and you might be the last one.
Hi, I think I might be. And I think that's a good way to send it off. My name is Sam Semmerow. I am a junior here at Albion, and I am currently the opinions editor. I've been writing with the Pleiad since spring semester my sophomore year, so a little over a year. Obviously right now I'm still working on the Pleiad. I'm still an editor, and I think the thing that I've learned the most from the Pleiad is perseverance, really. What is easy isn't always quality, and what is quality is not always easy. Just learning to kind of keep working at things, and you're not always going to get the answer you want immediately. So just keep working at it until you get to the point where you're satisfied with where you're at. I know this semester in particular, I've had a few articles that I've been working on where I've reached a point where I'm like, oh, well, kind of at a stalemate right now. So we'll put that aside and we'll come back to it later. And I think it's been a very good experience for me, especially socially, because I'm someone who's very shy, and this has been a great kind of learning to speak to people, I guess, experience. But yeah, has there anyone else not gone yet?
And that's even worse.
All right, I guess that's it. So everybody can unmute. It's happy hour, and